Hey guys, thanks for joining me. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Samsung Galaxy Tab A7 and do an unsponsored review and kind of a walkthrough of who this tablet is aimed at, what can you do with it, what should you probably not do with it, and ultimately whether it is worth the fairly budget price that it carries. Let's get started. Now I got this particular unit from Costco. This is the 64 gigabyte version. Costco ships it with an additional bonus 64 gigabyte SD card. And it retails normally at Costco for 260 bucks US, and I got it on sale for 200. Now that sale will continue for some time, and I'm sure they'll run these sales periodically. You can get it online for similar prices, often without the bonus card though. So it's kind of the extra thing you get from Costco is the extra 64 gigabyte SD card that they ship it with. Now whether or not that's really any benefit on this particular model, we're going to find out. So haven't opened it yet. Let's go ahead and see what's inside the box. So it gives you an idea of the size, right? It's a nice widescreen format. My purpose for buying this is primarily for stuff like YouTube and web browsing. I'm not going to do a lot of like high-end productivity type work where I'm doing spreadsheets and word processing and multitasking, things like that. But we're going to take a look at a little bit about what kind of capabilities this guy has with respect to that. Now this is got an aluminum backing on it, a little bit of plastic trim on the frame there, but nice and thin. It's actually nice and light. Yeah, so that's how that looks. Let's see what else we have in the box. Okay, here's our bonus 64 gigabyte Lexar SD card from Costco. Kind of a standard USB charging adapter and one Type-C USB cable. All right, pretty straightforward. Not a lot else in the box, just a little bit of paperwork. So I'm going to live with this thing for a week or so and try to get to know the ins and outs of this Android tablet and report back to you and let you know what I think of it and whether or not it's appropriate for various types of uses. I guess I'll see you in just a couple of seconds. All right, we are back. I've had about a full week to spend with this guy and kind of run it through the paces. And let's jump in and take a look at kind of how this thing performs in sort of normal everyday use. Now when you unlock the tablet, you can use a keypad entry or you can use facial recognition like I'm using right here. There is no fingerprint sensor, so do be aware of that. So let's do a little multitasking here. I'm going to open up Google News and then use Yahoo Finance. And then I'll go over here to the multiple window here and click the icon at the top of one of these and say split screen, and then pick the second app. Now I can control how much screen real estate is being used by either one by just using the slider in the middle. So you can see scrolling is quite snappy. No issues there. This is actually a use case that I will probably be using on a regular basis. If I go in to open a plot in the Yahoo Finance app, you can see it takes a little bit of time to load here, but I think that's a function of the Yahoo Finance app, not so much the performance of the tablet. If we go and take a look at YouTube here, let me get rid of that side screen and swipe that away. If I just click on a YouTube video here, they load nice and quick. In this case, I jumped ahead so you didn't have to look at the 15-second advertisement. But even in full screen here, you can see that whole 16:9 aspect ratio really lets you take advantage of the entire display, unlike the 4:3 on an iPad. Going into Disney Plus here, you can see scrolling up and down, very snappy. Occasionally you'll get the slight jitter, but it's really not a problem. Mostly it's a very buttery smooth experience. Let me go ahead and open up the screen display settings here just to show you. You've got the light and dark mode, there's adaptive brightness, all the things you normally expect on an Android device. And generally I find this IPS display to be quite sufficiently bright. So we go back into a video here and start playing it. If I were to kind of pivot it around and take a look and maybe look at it from different viewing angles, you'll see there's a slight dimming when you turn it, but that's pretty normal and it's not severe. If you don't happen to be looking at the screen straight on, it's still nice and bright even from a slight angle. Let's open up Call of Duty Mobile. This is a pretty heavy lift application, or game, I should say. But it actually plays pretty well. It takes about a minute to load, which I think is fairly normal since it's an online game and has to load a bunch of stuff from the web connection. But actual gameplay inside of Call of Duty Mobile is quite good. You typically are getting somewhere between, I don't know, 55 to 60 frames per second performance out of this, which is pretty good for a mobile device. Again, no real complaints here. This isn't the most heavy-duty Snapdragon processor in the Samsung tablet lineup, but at this price point, it's really a surprisingly good performer. The Eternium is a kind of a more of a retro style game. It takes about 30 seconds to load, a little bit less of a heavy lift than the Call of Duty Mobile. But again, gameplay is quite smooth, and the graphics are really good and snappy, and the colors are quite rich and vibrant. I really enjoy the gaming experience. At least, it's not really hardcore gaming, but it's sort of mid-range gaming for a tablet that costs $200. I mean, really, what's not to like here? Yeah, let's switch over and look at a game that maybe uses a Bluetooth controller, like a game controller. So here I'm using a game called Asphalt 9, and it's just a racing game. And I've got this Bluetooth wireless rechargeable game controller here that I got. And again, I put the links in the description below if you're interested in checking something like that out. But pairing is quite easy. As you can see, for driving games, having a handheld game controller is probably a little bit better. If you're doing typing, like doing email responses, or you're typing notes, journaling, anything like that, rather than using the onboard keyboard that pops up, you can use a Bluetooth keyboard. In this case, I've got a portable, foldable Bluetooth keyboard, which is pretty cool. I actually took this to Italy, and it was very easy to travel with. And you can see the tablet recognizes that you've paired a Bluetooth keyboard, and so it minimizes the virtual keyboard so you can start typing. Much, much easier way to go about note taking. So this keyboard folds up, it's rechargeable. One of my favorite accessories, I have to admit. All right, so I think you can see that for media consumption and web browsing and light gaming and maybe a little light multitasking, this is a really, really capable device. This tablet coming in at only $200 is an absolute no-brainer in my opinion. And as you can kind of tell, I've already bought some accessories for this because I'm definitely going to keep this. And I'll leave links for these below if you wanted to check out what these specific ones are. But the case is a third-party case for like $15, $14, as opposed to the $50 one that Samsung sells. And I've got this Bluetooth keyboard, as you saw. Very lightweight. One thing I'll point out, there are cheaper Bluetooth keyboards on than the one that I linked to, this one here. And there's one that's about $10 cheaper that looks identical, but I want you to be aware, it doesn't have these little feet right here, these little black feet, which can be pivoted in and out. Now these are actually pretty important because when you expand this thing out, without the black feet, the keyboard will tend to rock on you if you're typing. With the little black feet down, it doesn't, it's rock solid. So the other one that I saw that looks virtually identical to this is identical, except that it doesn't appear to have the black feet. So just be aware of that if you're looking for a foldable Bluetooth keyboard. But that worked pretty well. Fast charging is something that I've heard come up before with the A7. And I've heard somebody say that it doesn't come with fast charging, and that's kind of a disappointment. I've also seen specs on the thing that said it does have 15-watt fast charging. So I think what I have found in my testing is that obviously the little USB adapter or AC adapter that comes with is only like a 5-volt, 1.55 amp charger. And in my testing, it takes about 3.5 hours, I'd say, yeah, 3.5 hours from 20%, not all the way down, but 20% to charge it back to 100%. So you get something like, I don't know, 23 or 24% capacity every hour to bring this thing back up to full charge, and that's on the one that they give you. If you get something that's QC or Quick Charge 3.0 capable, you will get a little bit better charge performance. You may get something like, I don't know, somewhere between 30 and 50%. You will get a noticeably faster charge if you buy a QC 3.0 or if you already have one. The gaming on this thing is pretty fun. As you can see, it was relatively snappy. This is a 1080p resolution screen, but it is, I think, for standard media consumption and light gaming, It's really not bad. I even had Call of Duty up there briefly. I didn't do any actual gameplay. I just kind of pulled it up. But even in gameplay, running around and stuff like that is all pretty snappy. And I really had no complaints. Now, just be aware, if you're looking for one of these little Bluetooth controllers, not all games will support a Bluetooth controller. So Call of Duty, for example, doesn't support a controller on the mobile version right out of the box. Now, you can get it to work if you load another third-party utility and run that in the background. Then you can map the keys to the actions for Call of Duty if that happens to be the game that you want to play with. So you can find those instructions on YouTube out there. I kind of did a little poking around and found out what it took to make it work. But with the racing game, you can see I'm terrible at the racing game. Man, I'm bad at that. I oversteer all the time. But it does work great for stuff like that. This one actually has a bracket that you can attach to it and snap your phone right on the front of it, which is kind of cool. That's the other reason I got this one, because it came with the bracket as well, and you could use it with or without a phone attached, or you could use it in a larger tablet format. And it actually has a dongle too, so that a USB dongle, so you can attach it to your PC and play PC games with it. So it's pretty versatile if you're looking for something like that and you don't already have, for example, one of the newer, say, Xbox Bluetooth controllers, which I think will also work as long as they support Bluetooth. So maybe you don't even have to buy a handheld controller. But let's talk about memory on this thing. This is one thing that I think maybe is a little bit of a con as opposed to a pro. And a couple things. The internal memory is 3 gigabytes. And when you compare the performance to something like a standard, what is it, eighth generation iPad now, that also has 3 gigabytes internal memory. iOS takes up a little bit less of that system memory. The Android operating system takes up about half of that 3 gigabytes. So you can't load as much into memory for quick access, and it has to read from the storage, either the 64 internal or the 60, or whatever you add up to 1 terabyte expanded on the micro SD card. You will get a little jittery scrolling occasionally as it has to read more stuff in. And if you're multitasking, you're really pushing this thing with multiple apps, trying to split things and run things simultaneously that are sort of resource intensive. You could overtax this thing. With the basic stuff that I did, where I'm looking at Google News and maybe Yahoo Finance and looking at my stocks, that kind of thing, super easy. It didn't have any problem with that whatsoever. One thing I will say about that add-on up to 1 terabyte micro SD storage that this thing has, I think there's a limited value in that, really, unless you're going to be taking pictures and video with this thing. And I didn't really talk about the camera. It's got a 5 megapixel front camera and an 8 megapixel rear camera, and it'll take video just like your phone will. I noticed that the autofocus, it does focus hunting pretty hard when you're doing video, so it's kind of annoying. So this would not be a device I would get for the primary purpose of taking video and pictures. It's just sort of nice to have because it can do it. I don't think it does it great. But if you use it for that, you can store all that media content on the external memory card. As also with, if you're downloading offline viewing on Netflix and Disney Channel or Disney Plus or HBO Max and all that kind of thing. If you're downloading videos so you can watch them offline if you don't happen to be somewhere where you have Wi-Fi, that's good because you can store that content on the memory card as well. But you can't, unlike most other Android phones, it doesn't appear that you can take a program or an application and move it to the internal storage. Some programs will detect that there's a additional storage there, a micro SD card, and ask you if you want to store program data on that external card. It's not really external, on that add-on memory, we'll say. But it doesn't run the program off of the add-on memory, which is probably a good thing because running a program off the add-on memory is a little bit slower, and that's one of the things that, I mean, it's a double-edged sword with Android. It's nice that a lot of their devices give you the ability to add a micro SD card to increase capacity, but things do slow down if you run them off of that external micro SD card. I keep saying external. It's not external. It's inside. Anyway, this does not include S Pen support. I should point that out. The thing is, you can use any capacitive stylus with this thing and draw. That's really more of, I think, good for kids and things like that. I wouldn't use it for note-taking with a stylus like you might do with the S Pen, like I occasionally do on my Note 20. Now, to get the S Pen compatibility, you've got to step up to either the S7 or something like the S6 Plus Lite, something like that. But in either of those cases, you're talking almost double the cost, especially if you got this at the sale price of $200, like I said. Now, Costco's sort of normal price, I said, is $260 for the 64 gigabyte version. And at that full price, at least from Costco, it's still a pretty good deal. And I think it's a compelling option if you're in the market for a budget tablet. It's still significantly less expensive at that price point than the equivalent iPad version. And some people might prefer the iOS experience, but if you're more budget conscious and you like Android, I really don't think you can go wrong with this. And if you can get it at that $200 sale price, it's an absolute no-brainer. But I would recommend getting at least the 64 gigabyte version because of the limited benefit that you get by increasing the storage capacity with an add-on micro SD card. So that's about all I've got for you on this thing today. So thanks for sticking around with me to the end, if in fact you did. Please do give us a thumbs up if you found anything in here helpful, and consider subscribing if you like tech reviews and things like that, or if you like outdoor videos as well. That's the other thing that I do on this channel, kind of a mix of whatever I want to do. And we really appreciate you hanging around to watch. So hope to see you in the next one, and until then, have fun out there.